Before we get started, I would like to do this content creator that I'm using his video as an example, because I fact-checked his video 100% throughout the day today. The reason why I got turned on to this is because at HQ this morning, before we all set out on our routes, one of my buddies was like, "Hey man, did you hear what's happening with Greenland?" And I was like, "What?" And he's like, the EU and like 6 of its leaders just came out and pretty much gave the US the middle finger, and saying that we're the reason why the world is going to fail. As you can see, his title or his thumbnail to the video is all 6 of these guys, 7 of them, all standing there. The only one that's standing with the United States and Europe right now are Poland and Italy when it comes to the whole entire Greenland debate. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shout out Mr. Coins and Crises. He's a really good historian YouTuber. He's really, really great. Really, really great at explaining history and facts. I've been a longtime fan of this guy's channel. He's really, really good. So if you guys want to learn more about some history stuff, globally, the United States, all of it, go give him a subscribe. Watch a couple of his videos. Yeah, I was doing stuff around the house, so I missed the Yap stream. Oh, damn it, that adulting. Anyway, a little bit of context for if you are from Europe. I'm sorry, but I'm probably going to hurt your feelings with this video, because I have to be 100% honest as an American. I am an American United States infantry veteran of 10 years. I served in Afghanistan through 2 different campaigns. I have both of those campaign ribbons. I am not Special Forces. I never got a tab. I never went to the Q course. I've not done any of that. I'm not a Ranger. I'm just your atypical leg who has recon and demolitions experience. That's it. I left the military after 10 years as a staff sergeant. I was in charge of a platoon in 212 Infantry Regiment of the Red Warrior Battalion. Okay? The reason why I state my context of where the heck I come from in the world and what I used to do as a soldier is because I have watched a lot of my friends die over the simple fact of the United Nations and the rules in which they have bared down on me and my friends over the course of a 10-year career. That's okay. You can still shit all you want on France. There's nothing you can say that would shock me, to be honest. Probably said worse myself. Last night's stream for me was a clusterfuck. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Dutch. I'm sorry to hear that your dryer broke too, bud. Tell him, Cody, tell him. All right, I will, Dutch. And I have watched my buddies die in some of the most painful ways possible. As I stated yesterday during my yapping stream, almost 90% of the casualties in Afghanistan were because of its explosive nature, while the other 10% were WIAs of a firearms variety. Okay, so I watched my guys get blown up repeatedly. Me, myself, I have been blown up by an RPG and sent flinging out of a tower. I have a dent in my frontal lobe that restricts my frontal neuron activity, also known as short-term memory. I have permanent memory loss in my head, and there are blank spaces that me and the VA are trying to figure out. There is no way to repair this damage. This damage is irreversible. I have it for the rest of my life. And probably by the time I'm 60, I'm going to be delusional, and I'm going to be that old guy sitting in a rocking chair with a shotgun, not giving a fuck about anything. So, that being said, I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings with this one, but I'm going to speak honest to God truth as an American veteran, because my battalion has history throughout this whole entire video. In every single war since World War I, the Red Warriors have stood proud and stood tall by the red, white, and blue. And we have gone over to Europe and defended you all massively on numerous occasions. Red Warrior Battalion started off actually as a World War I regiment for the United States Infantry, and has been served in any conflict and every conflict that the United States has been a part of since World War I. My battalion is one of the oldest battalions in all of the United States Army. Part of being in one of the oldest battalions, I was also a part of one of the oldest infantry brigades and infantry divisions in the United States Army. So the history you're about to see, my division has been through all of it. 4th ID has served in every single world war. We've served in every conflict. We've been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, South Korea, North Korea during the Korean War, various other places. We helped in Berlin with aid for civilians. We have done a lot of different things, which is why as we go into this video, guys, I will explain to you why the fuck the United States deserves Greenland. And this guy here is going to explain it to all of us. All right. I'm going to get the video started. Now, remember, chat, this is going on YouTube, so please be YouTube friendly. I beg you, please.
In January 2026, 7 European leaders issued a joint statement condemning the United States, not Russia, not China, not Iran, but America, their protector for over a century, their crime against Europe, expressing interest in Greenland, an Arctic territory where America has defended European interests since World War II. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen warned that American action could mean the end of the transatlantic partnership, a partnership built on the graves of over 500,000 Americans who died defending Europe. French President Macron, German Chancellor Merz, and British Prime Minister Starmer all rushed to condemn American assertiveness. The same leaders whose nations spent decades underfunding their own defense while sheltering under American protection.
I think you'll be okay.
European troops were even deployed to Greenland in a symbolic show of defiance against the United States, forces that might have been better deployed to Europe's actual eastern border, where Russian...
Now, before I play the video, why is that statement important? It's because right now Russia is making a frontlines push against Ukraine. And the only reason why Russia is doing this is because, yet again, for the 4th time in human history, Europe has weakened itself, both financially, militarily, and throughout various treaties, they have pretty much spat in the face of America. America has spent over 10 decades since World War I providing military aid and civilian aid to the continent of Europe. We have backed every single play. We have defeated every evil that has wanted to erase you guys from the globe. We have taken that on for you. We've conducted the single greatest act of charity known in human history with $70 billion. And back then, during World War II, that was a lot of fucking money. And the American taxpayer paid it. Since 2001, America has paid for 90% of any UN action in the world. Not just in finances, we've also done it in American blood and sweat and tears. When I was in Afghanistan, you could go to any FOB you wanted in the country, but there were 2 major FOBs that other countries operated out of, BAF and CAF. 90% of those bases were occupied by United States soldiers. Only 10% were operated by every other nation in the world. Got it? Throughout all of the world's history, when we needed the world's help, you guys did not respond adequately as a government. I am not saying as the European people. I am saying as the European governments. The problem with that theory is that 3,000 of our people were attacked by one Osama bin Laden in one of the greatest slaughters known to human history. And when that happened, we got no backup. America immediately got into Afghanistan. We spent the first 3 weeks in Afghanistan as of troop deployment without any backup from any nation whatsoever. When we asked for help, Europe didn't give it to us. European countries wouldn't start showing up until about 2.5 years later. which is why the story of the horse soldiers exists. Why there's a statue in New York City of the 13. Now I will continue.
Aggression threatens daily. This is not a story about Greenland. This is a story about ingratitude, about a continent that has been saved by America again and again, yet now turns on its protector the moment American interests are asserted. To understand the depth of this betrayal, you must understand what America has sacrificed for Europe, a debt measured not in dollars but in American blood. Before we dive in, why not hit subscribe and drop a like? It really helps out. In the summer of 1914, the great powers of Europe looked across the Atlantic at America and saw a provincial backwater, a former colony of farmers and merchants, unworthy of a seat at the table of empires. The American army numbered just 98,000 men, 17th in the world, smaller than even Romania's. Kaiser Wilhelm dismissed the United States as a nation of mongrels incapable of fighting, while British officers joked that the Yankees were good at making money.
Who in the fuck did the same exact thing, chat? Who called us mongrels? Who called us slaves? Who called us the poorest of the poor? I believe that if you are British right now, you can kiss my fucking feet. We kicked your asses in 1775 being those poor little farmers, with nothing but rusty muskets and fucking pitchforks. You guys yet again spat on America, at least this fucking Kaiser did, by calling us mongrels. Let's continue.
But knew nothing of real warfare. These were the same empires that would soon be drowning in their own blood, begging that provincial backwater to cross an ocean and save them from themselves. When the guns of August 1914 thundered across Europe, the continent's generals promised quick victories. German troops in Paris by autumn, everyone home by Christmas with medals on their chests. Instead, the Western Front became a 400-mile-long graveyard stretching from the Swiss Alps to the English.
Okay, go with your counterpoint, Shepard. Yes, Kaisers are Germans, Dutch. Kaisers are Germans up until Hitler took over in World War II. It's going to take me a while to type. I'll be waiting for your message.
Channel, consuming an entire generation of European youth. At the Somme in 1916, British forces suffered 60,000 dead and wounded before lunch on the first day alone, the bloodiest single day in British military history. The Battle of Verdun consumed 300,000 men on both sides, fighting for months over hills that changed hands a dozen times and remain too poisoned to farm today. By 1917, the proud
By the way, I fact-checked this. If that land is still poisoned, it is still poisoned today. You can't grow anything on it in southern France. Yeah. That is how bad World War I was doing for Europe. Europe was in shambles, but hey, us good old American mongrels, right?
empires that had mocked America were bleeding to death. Their treasuries empty, their populations starving, their armies cracking under unbearable strain. French soldiers mutinied by the tens of thousands, entire regiments refusing to advance one more step into the machine guns that had slaughtered their brothers. Russia collapsed completely, freeing
Then why are you talking about English kissing your feet when in the next context of the video was a Kaiser making fun of us? That comes later. Wait until the World War II segment, and I'll answer that.
German divisions to shift westward for a final knockout blow against the exhausted British and French. And so, in their darkest hour, the masters of the world swallowed their pride and called for help from that young nation of farmers and shopkeepers they had mocked. America answered, not because Europe deserved it, but because Americans believed in freedom and were willing to fight for it, even for...
Now, this is the point in American history where we militarized ourselves. There were 5 infantry divisions specifically created, 4th Infantry Division being one of them. Hi, Neven! Of course. I ask for...
Spartan!
God damn it, Neven.
What is your profession?
Trying to do a serious reaction here, Neven. Anyway, this is the first time in American history that we formed up 5 military divisions, 4th ID being one of those infantry divisions. The 4th ID regulated the term doughboy and spread it across the Army. And how do I know this? Because in order to gain rank in the 4th Infantry Division, you have to know your unit's history. You get grilled on it by 5 different people that are of high-ranking officers and command sergeant majors in order to gain a rank as an NCO. That is called your so-called interview. But the 4th ID started the mainstream term of the doughboy during World War I. Because oh my gosh. Because all of the Kaisers and all of the commanders on both sides of the World War I fronts thought that we were soft, that we were uncourageous, that we were unwilling to do what needed to be done. They systematically, throughout World War I, they repeatedly begged for our help, while at the same time, every time that they gained an up leg, they would send back, hey, we don't need your help anymore. You guys are still the freaking bottom feeders of the world. Your country does nothing. And then it got to the point where their casualties were so high between both sides, as explained in the video, that both sides were giving up the fighting. Nobody would advance. Everybody would stay in their holes. The French army was a fucking shamble of disloyalty. They were killing each other left and right. So France and a combination of UK and I think it was Spain, gave the United States Congress a letter asking us for military help. In World War I, there were no technological advances. We literally won World War I for the continent of Europe based on our hearts and bodies alone.
For those who had sneered at them.
Yeah,
when the United States declared
Nathan.
war in April 1917, it possessed an army smaller
since
than
we ruined the flow.
127,500
the resident IDF
men
Wally
with
is
almost
here.
no modern equipment or training. Within 18
Hey, bro, just a little bit of a heads up. Don't call Neven a lolly. Seth is joking, Neven.
months, America mobilized over 4 million soldiers, a feat of national will that European generals had believed utterly impossible. 2 million American doughboys crossed the submarine-infested Atlantic, arriving in France as fresh reinforcements while European armies scraped the bottom of their manpower barrels. At Belleau Wood in June 1918, American Marines fought for 3 weeks through a forest that German machine guns had turned into a killing ground, suffering 9,000 casualties to take ground the Germans.
What Marine Corps division won that battle? Pop quiz, chat. What Marine Corps division? Ghostbusters. No, Shepard. Everybody thinks that the crowning achievement of the Marine Corps' first Marine Division is World War II, when we completely wiped out the Japanese armies across various islands. That is not the case. The first Marine Corps Division took this unhallowed ground from the Germans, suffered 200 casualties in 10 feet worth of warfare per inch that they gained. What do I mean by that? I mean, for every 10 feet you took, you were fighting somebody. Which is, well, they didn't get the term devil dogs until the Japanese started calling them devil dogs. Because the Japanese were horrified by the Marine Corps.
Thought impregnable. When German prisoners asked who these fierce new soldiers were,
school doesn't teach you a lot about World War I, to be honest.
One reportedly said,
"That's why we're doing this, Dutch. It's educational."
Then the war is lost. The Meuse-Argonne offensive involved 1.2 million American soldiers, 26,000 killed in 47 days to break the German line and end the war.
So the Argonne offensive was a combination of 4th Infantry Division and 2nd Infantry Division. We completely wiped the floor with the Germans in the middle of a forest and a field that ranged about 100 miles. And we pushed that line all the way back until the Germans gave up completely, threw down their rifles, and realized, oh my gosh, these doughboys aren't soft.
The armistice came on November 11th, 1918, not because Europeans had won their war, but because American intervention made German defeat mathematically inevitable. Over 116,000 Americans lay dead in European soil. Young men from Kansas and California and New York, who had crossed an ocean to save nations that had mocked their country. And how did Europe repay this sacrifice? They squabbled over the spoils, nursed old hatreds, and set the stage for an even greater catastrophe within 20 years.
This is the time period between World War I and World War II where Hitler started to gain fame within the German political parties. He was a young man, he was sprite, and he kept on angering everybody around him, as in other nations, with the rhetoric that he would put out. Because the great thing, and I'm not saying Hitler's a great person, he's a diabolical animal, and I wish that we would have done something about him sooner, but the talent that Hitler had was speech. He was a very, very good talker, which is why he expanded everything in Germany during the 20-year separation. He literally took an army that got dwindled down to maybe 1,000 men, and he rebuilt it in the span of 25 years to the mega monster that it turned into in World War II.
You might think that after being rescued from self-destruction, European leaders would have learned something permanent about gratitude, about humility, about preparing for...
I think you're trying to make a point where you're trying to show how much the U.S. has done for Europe. My take is that Europeans know how much the EU has done. It's the bureaucratic EU leadership which is currently making these decisions, not the European people. That's fully understandable, Shepard. That fully tracks. Okay? The thing that Europe has embraced in mass is leftism. Wokeism is literally coming down on you guys arbitrarily without your freedom of thought. It is making you prisoners. The UK, France, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, all of those places, Ukraine, all of those places in Europe are going more and more left every single day, turning you people into slaves instead of free. They are taking Western civilization and making a mockery of it. The reason why it pisses me off about Greenland is because we have sacrificed almost 6 times more blood for that stupid-ass continent, and you guys can't... Oh... And your politicians cannot get the dildo out of their ass to think for 5 seconds. I'm not doing this to inform or berate the European people. I'm doing this to berate the European powers at large right now. Because they are idiots. And they deserve to be called such.
For the future. Instead, they spent the interwar years crippling Germany with reparations, ignoring rising threats, and pretending the war to end all wars had actually ended war.
The ignoring rising threats is Germany ignoring Hitler. Hitler literally created a party that created a vacuum in their politics. Because, like I said before, not a great guy, but he was a great fucking speaker. He was starting to turn the German people against the very government that was trying to get them out of debt. Their quote-unquote right-wing party, as a leftist would say nowadays. And he completely smothered that political option within Germany during that time frame.
America, disgusted by European scheming and exhausted by a war it had won for others, retreated across the Atlantic, wanting nothing more to do with the continent's endless conflicts. Britain slashed military spending throughout the 1920s.
There is a saying in the 4th Infantry Division, for love of God and our country. That is our slogan as a division. Love is the main word there. Fourth Infantry came up with that on their way back home. Because the entire army of the U.S. was not only shattered, morally speaking, from losing their brothers in arms, but they also went there to defend something that does not belong to them.
1920s and 1930s, France hid behind...
He also made... Oh my god, sauerkraut bratwurst. How is that any different from what the U.S. had under Biden? It took 4 years to break out of that as well. Yes, but then the American people rallied in the next freaking election and completely smothered the leftists. Trump won the popular vote. He won every swing state. Even if his percentages are 1 or 2% in margin, he still won them, which means that more people in those swing states wanted to get away from the left. That's one thing that a lot of people don't understand about America. Oh crap! Oh dear God, I hit my mouse. That's one thing that the rest of the world does not understand about America. Okay. If you do something to America...
hid behind the concrete of the Maginot Line, and everyone hoped that...
If you do something in America that pisses us off, we have every right to be loud about it. Look at what the leftists are doing. We voted for Trump, and they're being the loudest people in the room. They're being violent. They're trying to run over ICE agents. They're not complying at all with the law. They're going into churches and scaring the shit out of random people that want nothing to do with it. We voted against that, man, en masse. That's what happens when we see something fucked up. Our vote is our power, something that most European countries don't have, because you guys aren't allowed to vote for it because you guys are not truly free people, which was the whole entire point of us going up there in World War I to grant you that. But you let things like Hitler fester. You guys brought up your old grudges, as exactly as the video depicts, and then you guys turned into a shit show again for the next phase of European history.
Wishing hard enough would make threats disappear.
My take is that we're 4 years behind the U.S. We can see that a lot of European countries are progressively heading more conservative as well. Yes, you guys are heading more conservative on a people level, but you're not heading more conservative on a political level. Do you understand what I'm saying there? There's a difference between your politicians and your people. Your people want to be more conservative. Your politicians do not, because it is making them greedy and rich. While most of common Americans in the United States, we hate people like Omar, AOC, we hate Schumer, we think that he's a hack and he should be kicked out of Congress, effective immediately. All those people that have done dirty shit for the libtards under Biden, we all think that they should be put up for treason because it goes against the moral fabric of the United States. But we saw our voting period. And we saw that we could get Trump in there again to piss them all off, which we did.
Yeah. When Adolf Hitler rose to
Remember
power and
the
began
5th of
rearming
November.
Germany in open defiance
Amen,
of every
Tomahawk.
treaty, European democracies responded with hand-wringing appeasement and wishful thinking.
Oh, damn.
Prime Minister
An American
Neville Chamberlain
barbecue
flew
and
to
my
Munich
first gun.
in
Hell yes.
1938, handed Hitler
The only problem with the conservative ideology for the EU is vastly different from that of the US. That is true. You guys... Everybody in Europe that is a conservative, you guys play your conservative hand too hard. You're not being vocal enough as a group. You're not being united enough as a group. Conservatives, on the other hand, in the United States, we're getting together. Things that Charlie Kirk did, like form Turning Point USA, going to colleges. You guys don't do that. You guys don't do that en masse like we do here in America. You just don't.
Sudetenland and returned waving a piece of paper promising peace for our time. Words that became synonymous with cowardice. The lesson of the Great War, that Europe could not defeat a German bid for domination without American help, had been completely forgotten in barely 2 decades. And so Europe sleepwalked into catastrophe once again. having learned nothing, prepared nothing, and changed nothing. German tanks rolled into Poland on September 1st, 1939, and within 5 weeks the country was crushed between the Wehrmacht and...
So the reason why Poland takes the stance that it does on immigration is because of this event right here. Hitler invading Poland forever changed that country's way of thinking. Because they did. They got major openly handed slapped by Hitler. They did. They got slapped by that asshole. He just came in with freaking panzer tanks and just rolled over the entire country in a week. He just stabilized the thought of Poland with that one action. And now Poland has one of the tightest borders in all of Europe, because Poland and Italy are the only two countries right now in the whole entire continent that are learning their lessons and mistakes that have cycled throughout the years of modern civil history, while the rest of Europe is not.
Stalin's Red Army. Britain and France declared war but did essentially nothing for 8 months, sitting behind their fortifications in what journalists mockingly called the phony war. Then in May 1940, German panzers smashed through the Ardennes forest that French generals had declared impassable, bypassing the Maginot Line entirely and making a mockery of French strategy. France, which...
Do you guys recognize the name? It's the same exact place that the doughboys saved France from in World War I. They literally did the safest thing they could do. They built up a whole entire freaking concrete perimeter. They sat in a big old freaking concrete bunker for 8 months and did absolutely nothing. No reconnaissance, no patrols, no nothing. The Germans snuck literally into that base's area and completely wiped them out. For the second time in that country's history, that forest was completely demolished by warfare. After it spent 20 years recuperating on a science level anyway. That is how sad France is. You guys have wiped out everything that you could have possibly wanted from your revolutionary days by the modern, historical era. France, you've literally looked like a bunch of bitches ever since World War I. You had a whole bunch of traitorous freaking troops that would rather betray your country and its people than die for it. One, which pushed the Germans closer to Paris, which is a bad thing. You bent the knee. You bent the knee to evil. That is like your, guys' postmark trait, is you bend the knee to these evil people instead of fighting them. I, again, go back to 1775. Britain talked a very big, huge-ass fucking game, sent their greatest fucking colonel, Colonel Cornwallis, over here, thought he could kick our asses, and guess what? A whole bunch of dudes with Ruskin muskets and pitchforks destroyed you. Starting the Army's 1st Ranger Regiment in the process. By the way, that's what the movie, the Mel Gibson movie Patriot's about, by the way. The 75th Ranger Regiment can be tied all the way back to Martin's Rangers of the Revolutionary War. Fun fact for you all.
Which had sacrificed 1.4 million men to stop Germany the first time, collapsed in just 6 weeks. Its army shattered, its government...
Something our leaders at the time thought won't happen because of rules. Well, Sep, the problem is that in Europe, you guys squabble over everything. You may have the EU, but you guys are sitting there at 100 people squabbling over shit. You're multi-nation squabbling over whatever piece of territory that you can. You guys didn't unite after World War I. You just went back to business as usual. You gave Hitler a chance to freaking take over the whole entire continent, which he ended up doing. If we would have never been involved in World War II right now, the Third Reich would be over Europe right now. And you guys and your politicians are so fucking greedy that they've forgotten about that.
Fleeing. It's...
Which is why I go back to the point. We earned Greenland. We're not taking it from you. We should have built up enough respect with our manpower alone throughout 2 world wars, and the fact that we financed your defense for the last fucking 40 years, from my tax dollars, mind you, to defend you. We earned Greenland. Hell, right now, the UK still owes us almost $120 billion that they haven't paid to NATO in the last 10 years. They haven't made a single NATO payment in 10 years. Biden let them go for 4. Actually made a resolution that they didn't have to pay. Which is why he was a shit-ass president and a pussy.
Pride ground into dust. The British Army escaped Dunkirk only
Rusty
by abandoning
Muffets.
every tank, every
up,
artillery
Dutch.
piece, and every truck on the beaches. A humiliating evacuation disguised as a miracle. By June 1940, Hitler controlled virtually all of Western Europe, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, the entire Atlantic coastline from the Arctic to Spain. Britain stood alone, its cities burning under Luftwaffe bombs, its merchant ships sinking to U-boats, its treasury running dry, and once again, Europe needed America. Winston Churchill rallied his nation with magnificent defiance, promising to fight on the beaches and never surrender. But defiance alone...
What if Greenland themselves says they don't want to join the U.S.? That doesn't fucking matter. The United States has done enough for fucking Europe and Western civilization for y'all to shut the fuck up and deal with it. I hate to tell you this, Shepard, but I am really, really sick and tired of people from, like, the British and French governments getting on X telling me as an American that I can't make fun of people. That's bullshit. I can. I'm an American. I go by my Constitution, which is fucking First Amendment right here. As long as I'm not threatening life, I can say whatever the fuck I want. Your little... Oh, God, that little stupid bitch from France. Her tweet yesterday fucking nearly sent me off a fucking ledge.
could not produce the weapons Britain desperately needed. In December...
Now your goal is talking point overlap, which makes sense. The solution will vary depending on how you fix things. This is why conservatism in China will look different from the United States or Japan. To people in the United States, some of these conservative moments seem very left-leaning because of their small numbers worldwide. That is... DJ makes a very valid point. That is another reason why it looks more left to us in retrospect. By the way, who said... Vinny, what's your problem with Churchill? Before we dig deep into this part of the video. What's your problem with Churchill, dude? Not even the 2% was outlined and agreed upon by everybody? That is true. Biden let them go on $150 billion payments over the span of 4 years. Britain's treasury didn't have to pay a dime to the UN because Biden made it so. And guess who got an increase in that? The American taxpayer, of course. You're talking about the idiot that said she was going to arrest people in the U.S. and take them back to Europe for trial or someone else? Yes, Greenie, that woman. Was that the French Prime Minister? No, that dude's a guy. Who in the fuck was that lady? By the way, Greenie, if you can give me a name, that'd be dope.
1940, Churchill wrote perhaps the most humiliating letter in the history of the British Empire, confessing to President Roosevelt that Britain could no longer pay for...
So, yet again, it wasn't the French writing the letter this time, but it was the very people that we defeated being basic-ass bitches, huh? I bet you your whole entire country, if you're British, felt very humbled back then. Because the very people you tried to take over in 1775, you had to ask those people for help. And guess what Americans remember? We remember every single time we fight for something. Which is why leftists want to eradicate it from modern education. Which is why if you look at the average Gen Zer, he doesn't even know what the fuck World War II is and what time period it took place. Fuck even remembering about World War I. Fuck. They don't even know when the freaking Declaration of Independence was signed and when we actually got an army or a navy. They don't know any of those things anymore, which is a humiliation on our part because we're reverting to the way that Britain used to be back during the colonial days. We're walking around, we have leftists walking around ego tripping on their own little fucking pink hair buns and shit, thinking that they're awesome, and they're not. All you guys are is a bunch of evil little villains that are making us look bad.
For the supplies it needed to survive.
Wait, so if one of the female PMs in the EU, oh, you don't know who she is? Don't remember? Okay. Wait, so if the people of a sovereign nation don't want to join the U.S., it doesn't matter? If Greenland wants to join the U.S., I would celebrate it, because it's the voice of the people. You can't preach freedom and then take away people's freedom. You'll never get them on your side. Okay, maybe I do need to explain that a little bit better. I'm saying on a higher politician level, I don't care what Greenland's politics think. I care what its people think 110%. You're absolutely right. The reason why I won't defend Greenland's politicians right now is because they just let the UN drop, what was it, 10,000 troops in Greenland to so-called defend it? Your people would be happy to be a part of the United States. There's a whole entire territory in Canada voting to secede from Canada because of how Trudeau dropped that country into a hellhole. Economically, militarily. Canada's the main reason why we know liberalism doesn't work. Those guys went full on fucking woke, and now they don't have a penny to their name. Literally, the Canadian government is asking everybody else for aid. And the only reason they're not getting it from the United States now is because we voted Trump into power. It was one of the first things that he declined to do. I know that your people want to become a part of us. I'm speaking to your politicians who don't want it. And you can find some politicians that don't want it. They sent more than that. They sent 40 troops in total. Okay, wait a minute. We need to look this up. Because there seems to be conflicting stories here. No UN troops were sent to Greenland in 2026. A small symbolic deployment of dozens of troops from various NATO nations, like France, Germany, UK, Norway, Sweden, Finland, arrived in January 26 for a joint exercise and reconnaissance led by Denmark as a response to the U.S. interest in acquiring the territory. These forces, oh my god, it's only 30 to 50 personnel in total? Damn, you countries really did not learn your lesson. You guys literally have the combat skill SWAT. If you put it 1-to-1 with any soldier in Europe, it would take 3 of you to every 1 of me with the skill factor involved. Yeah, that's probably right. So you got 30 to 50 people there, and that is your government's political defiance, huh? So basically what you did was you did a political riot in Greenland, except it's got UN stamped on it. Wow, you did a fucking leftist protest with soldiers. That's uniquely hilarious. It started at 40, but they sent more this week. Oh my god, Greenie, they sent 10 more!
Proudest
Please.
empire in history was reduced to begging its former colony for survival, and America, despite
No, let's just send 5 Flordanians.
having been burned by European ingratitude once before.
Yeah, it's like 40 people there right now. Take that, U.S. You're cooked. Shepard, no, we're not.
Answered the call again.
I appreciate you, though. Speaking up and clarifying that, Shepard. Thank you.
Lease program provided over $50 billion in aid to allied nations, equivalent to nearly $700 billion today. the largest wartime foreign aid program ever conceived. American...
They claim they were going to double it by the end of the month. Okay, with what military firepower are you talking about? Right now, Kim Jong-un is looking at our 3rd Infantry Division, which is almost 250-something thousand strong. Or it should be, anyway. I don't know how Biden crippled it. But that's what it was when I left the Army. So, that's us being strong. What the you sending 50 dudes? That's fucking nothing. You know what that shows the U.S.? That shows the U.S. that you don't have the power to back up what you say. Send 6 Texans in a barbecue. They'll have 3 people cooking while the others take care of the soldiers.
Factories produced weapons.
Wait, Greenie, are you from, or Shepard, are you from Greenland? Or are you American?
Vehicles, food, and supplies in quantities that staggered the imagination. By 1944, the United States was producing 60% of all Allied munitions. The United Kingdom received over $31 billion in American aid.
You hear that, Great Britain? You hear that, UK? Where's my $31 fucking billion that you still fucking owe us? Cheapskate little Brits. And I'm not talking about the people, I'm talking about the fucking parliament over there, which is fucking garbage.
Soviet Union over 11 billion. America became the arsenal of democracy for a world that...
Symbolic or not, we should pull our military support from every NATO country that sent troops. No, I'm from the Netherlands. I lived in the U.S. for a bit while my wife was studying there. What'd you think, Shepard? What'd you think of America while you were here? Let's kidnap Commander and his wife so they can live here. Now, DJ, that's a leftist thing to do. We don't do that here. Are we talking about doing another yoink? Madrino style. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but doesn't the U.S. does the U.S. pay for literally everything mixed with NATO group would literally fall apart if we stop funding everything? Okay, let me show you. I'm going to show you the percentages and it's going to wow the shit out of you. We pay 26 to 27% now that Trump's in power. He lowered that down from 72%. So right now, the European Union's feeling it because the American people voted in a guy who wanted to pay less to the UN. That's what we're paying now from the president we voted for, which is a comfortable number for me. You know why? Because literally all the top 9 countries behind us for the last 2 decades haven't even come close to 20-something%. Great Britain is the second one behind us, and they haven't even breached fucking 10% yet. So, suck it, European Union. But yes, if we stopped financing soldiers to embassies, yeah, they wouldn't have the manpower to make up for it. Tylen, you're absolutely correct there. They would not have the manpower nor the munitions to deal with something happening. Like, for example, oh my god, Ukraine gets invaded. Who's the first person that Ukraine asked for help? America! And what did we do? We gave him $300 billion and 200 and something 20 billion of it can't be found from the Ukrainian government. Yeah. Democrats shot themselves in the foot during the Biden administration. All that Democrats did is make us hate liberalism every motherfucking day that Biden was in power. Every fucking day.
Could not save itself. Stalin himself privately
we were
admitted
paying
that without
so
American
much.
trucks...
Tylen, back when I was growing up as a kid, they used to teach us this in world geography as part of, like graduating from 6th to 7th grade. There was a time where my old history teacher told us that we were paying upwards of 62 to 69% of everything funded in the UN in the 90s.
Food and raw materials.
Cody, you're wrong. The 20 mil can be found. It went back to Biden.
Russia could not have survived the German onslaught.
Yeah, I know.
A confession Soviet historians would...
Glad they did the opposite of that Jellywig clip and dropped those numbers. Emperor Snifferton. Okay, now we're talking. Wait a minute. Do you think the U.S. would take me out of my country like Maduro, but without the possible black site and waterboarding experience so I could be in the U.S.? No, Seth, unfortunately, you have to pay $2.5K to get into the country legally now. So what Trump did is he shut down the southern border. He completely reworked our immigration policy to where you have to pay to get into the United States. Which for as long as we've let this whole entire illegal immigration thing run rampant, it's about time that we did that. Been letting the southern border do its thing now for about 60 years, which is stupid. We should have never let it happen in the first place.
Would later bury. American
Thank you for the lurk, Silver.
Britain fighting, kept Russia in the war, and made possible the eventual liberation of Europe. A liberation that would cost hundreds of thousands more
geography.
American
God
lives.
damn, dude.
On June 6, 1944, American soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy in the largest amphibious invasion in the history.
2.5K? I better work on my streaming setup faster then. Are you going to make that a goal? Oh my god, that's funny. Hey guys, my streaming goal is $200 or $2,500 so that I can get citizenship in the United States, because here sucks!
Of warfare. Operation Overlord.
No man, the waterboarding is like a
Europe's
rite of
liberation.
passage and it's a part of the package! No, we don't do that to people wanting to become citizens of the United States. Wink, wink.
At Omaha Beach,
Sorry,
American
Caps, you're good,
GIs
Tyler.
climbed cliffs into the teeth of German machine guns, suffering over 2,000 casualties in a single morning to establish the foothold that would free a continent. From Normandy to Paris to the Rhine to Berlin, American forces drove the spear into the heart of Nazi Germany, fighting through hedgerows, forests, and frozen battlefields. The Battle of...
We pushed every single front that the Nazis held back then. Every front. From northern Finland all the way down to Spain. Every one of them. Though, D-Day is where we found out that the Germans really didn't have the fucking courage to stand to us. They folded like fucking paper. Eisenhower made a gamble. Instead of dealing with 200 miles of beach, he only wanted to deal with about 10, 15 miles worth of spread. And he put every single American soldier on there. To include the 2nd Ranger Regiment. Which is what Saving Private Ryan's all about. The 2nd Ranger Regiment. That is actually a true story. Which the 2nd Ranger Regiment ended up becoming the 75th Ranger Regiment. So, yeah. Another thing of American unit history there. But that Saving Private Ryan story that has Tom Hanks in it, that's actually a real thing. That little squad of Rangers went around to find one little private from the fucking Screaming Chickens. In the
of the
101st.
Bulge in December 1944 saw 19,000
Say psych
Americans...
right now, for real? Honestly, yeah, it's a goal itself. Making enough money to leave Europe and live in the U.S. Wow. I only watched Saving Ryan's Privates. Oh my god, dude. Don't make fun of that movie. That movie's actually good. That was back when Tom Hanks wasn't a fucking psychopath.
killed stopping Hitler's last desperate offensive in the frozen Ardennes.
I'm cool
the
with
same
that.
forests
If
where
they
France
at
had
least
failed
wouldn't
4
expect the
years
U.S.
earlier.
to keep subsidizing
Since you've made it
everything
this
over
far,
there.
you're clearly enjoying the content. So please hit subscribe and drop a like. It helps.
Yeah, guys, go over to Coins. Subscribe to his channel. Find it. Do it now. Do it now. Do it right now. No, I'm kidding. Don't fucking stop watching the stream, chat. Jesus Christ. I saw my number go down one.
More than you think. With that said, let's get back to it. 400,000 Americans never came home from World War
That's true, but the reason why I like Saving Private Ryan is because I'm an Army guy. Love and loyalty, man.
II. Buried in cemeteries across Europe, rows of white crosses marking the price America paid so...
Okay, let me explain that better. Okay, Band of Brothers talks about both fronts in the TV show. I like Saving Private Ryan because it was the first realistic Hollywood glimpse into what happened in World War II. That's why I like it better than Band of Brothers.
So Europeans could be free. When the guns fell silent
Shut
in
up,
May
DJ.
1945, Europe lay in ruins. Not as a collection of great powers, but as a devastated continent utterly dependent on America.
I want everybody in Europe that is in chat right now to pay attention to this next segment. Okay?
American mercy and American generosity. And America, unlike any conqueror in history...
What do I think of Gettysburg and Glory? One, I think that the Civil War in and about itself is one of the most polarizing events in U.S. history. Okay? I don't like it that we had a civil war over slavery. I don't support slavery whatsoever. I think that it's a crude and very bloody practice that should have never been practiced in America to begin with. Okay? And yes, General Lee deserved to get ass smacked. Another good movie that you guys should watch is Lincoln. Lincoln's another really good movie. It has a lot of great actors in it, actually. I think that Gettysburg is one of the most courageous but most bloodthirsty moments that we had in American history. And I feel sorry for everybody that lost a son during that battle. That battle was rough. Glory was a good movie, though, too. Yeah. Yeah, I like both of the movies, Greenie.
chose not to exploit its victory, but to rebuild what European madness had
this
destroyed.
is about Marshall
The
Plan.
Marshall Plan
Yep.
pumped over $13 billion into European reconstruction between 1948 and 1951, equivalent to $150 billion today, funded entirely by American taxpayers. American money rebuilt European factories, paid European workers, fed European families,
Gator, not
and
to you,
raised
Cody.
European cities from the ashes of their own destruction. It was the most generous act of national policy in human history. Victors rebuilding the vanquished, liberators funding the reconstruction of nations that had nearly destroyed themselves twice in 30 years. Britain had won the war but was bankrupt, rationing bread in peacetime. Germany lay divided and occupied. France was humiliated by collaboration.
The divide in Germany is what led to the Berlin Wall and the Cold War, because Germany did not fix itself adequately, which it's about to get into.
And America paid to restore them all. No conquering power had ever done this before.
I'm
And
not
European
acknowledging your
nations
comment,
accepted
Greenie.
American generosity while already beginning to forget who had saved them. In June 1948, Stalin tested American resolve by blockading West Berlin, cutting off all land and water routes to the city and its 2 million inhabitants. Soviet planners calculated the Western Allies would abandon Berlin rather than risk war. They had not counted on American determination to protect even those who might not deserve protection. For 15 months, American and British pilots flew around the clock, delivering 2.3 million tons of supplies to keep West Berlin alive.
Bro, this elementary second year high school history here. Yeah, exactly, Shepard. Which, ask a Gen Zer if they know what the Marshall Plan is, and they won't know. They won't know anything about it. They won't know that Europe is fully functioning right now as a civilized continent because of the American taxpayer. They won't know that. Take that guy who was freaking running around screaming in churches today, who's been all over X. That guy doesn't know what the Marshall Plan is. I'm willing to bet he doesn't.
Greatest humanitarian airlift in history.
Yet he's doing the same things that, you know, all of those fascists were doing in Nazi Germany during World War II, and it's stupid.
At the peak of Operation Vittles, one aircraft landed every 30 seconds. American pilots risking their lives daily in some of the worst flying weather on Earth. 31 Americans died keeping Berlin free, early casualties of what would become a 45-year Cold War to protect Europe from Soviet domination. Stalin lifted the blockade in May 1949, humiliated by American logistics and American will. But American commitment to European defense was just beginning. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization was born in April 1949.
Otherwise known as NATO, a collective group of retards.
Placing the entirety of Western Europe under the American nuclear umbrella, a promise that an attack on Paris meant war with Washington. NATO's first Secretary General described the alliance with brutal honesty, to keep the Americans in, the Russians out, and the Germans down. A formula that would define European security for half a...
This is exactly why the whole entire world hates Germany as a country. You guys in Germany have started 2 world wars, you've decimated populations, you let a crazy man literally run the country almost into obliteration, you systematically almost wiped off an entire race of humans off the planet doing so. So, to take Germany at its word, I'm sorry, you haven't made up for your past history, Germans. You guys need to start kicking out these political assholes that want to make you look bad. Because now they're making you look worse.
A century. At the height of the Cold War, over 7,000 American nuclear weapons were deployed on European soil. A staggering arsenal deterring Soviet aggression that Europeans could not have deterred themselves. At its peak in the late 1950s, over 430...
And you want to know who asked for those nuclear weapons? Every single country in Europe. Every one of them. The moment that we put NATO into power, it took every single European country to ask America for fucking nukes. Because they saw the brutality of what happened in Japan. And that the brutality in Japan that we unleash, look at that, it fucking worked.
50,000 American troops were stationed in Europe.
Point of order, Hitler was evil, but I don't think he was crazy. He was actually brilliant, just evil as fuck. Okay, I'll concede to that. I'll concede to that, Greenie.
Men from Texas and Ohio standing guard so Europeans could sleep safely. American taxpayers funded bases across West Germany, Britain, Italy, Spain, and Turkey.
Every single NATO base, if you are American, your tax dollars have paid for it over the last 50 years. I give that slow, sarcastic freaking round of applause to everybody in NATO that belongs to a different country in Europe. You guys are fucking twats. Thank you for wasting my money.
Paying for the infrastructure of European defense while European governments discovered they had money for other priorities. The total cost of the Cold War to American taxpayers exceeded $13 trillion, spent protecting a continent that would soon take American sacrifice entirely for granted. Here, the story of ingratitude truly begins. A pattern of European behavior that should make every American taxpayer's blood boil. Sheltered under the American nuclear umbrella, European governments began building...
We've been paying for it literally since World War I, Thailand. Once World War I started, we repaired all of Europe after World War I was over. We gave Europe a fighting chance to become a Western civilization again. They floundered it, let Hitler take over Germany, let Hitler reestablish his military. Nobody checked him. He connived his way into basically the highest hierarchy within Germany, completely destroyed every political party that was around him, and then he sought to conquer Europe. Guess what? Winston Churchill decided that it'd be a good idea to ask us for help. That man humbled himself with one of the probably biggest humiliations in Britain's history by writing that letter asking us for help. Because at that time, after what happened in World War I, watching Hitler rise to power, we didn't have any respect back then for anybody in Europe. And that is on our people as a whole, not our politicians. Our people hated Europe back then and didn't want to help. They didn't, us Americans, we didn't want to send soldiers over there in World War II. which is exactly what Roosevelt tried to do. Roosevelt tried to do what the American people voted him for, which is to stand resolute against helping Europe. But the thing that us Americans did not calculate was we did not calculate that they would take over France so quickly and decimate France. That was kind of the bending knee that we had to take. That's the humiliation on Americans' parts during World War II. We had to watch France get slaughtered because we didn't want to help. By that time, Hitler had amassed so much military might that he'd become such a big, huge cancer on the world that if we ignored him for much longer, he was going to take over Europe anyway. The thing that pushed us, though, was Pearl Harbor. The moment that Japan, who was allied with Hitler, decided to destroy Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, it was game on. We did absolutely nothing to help Europe at all. We literally, during World War II, the first fucking 5 to 7 years of it, we stayed neutral in the world. The only thing we did was we built up America. That's it. We didn't do anything to help Europe at all. We stopped giving them aid. We let them take care of themselves. The American taxpayer gave them the money to rebuild the continent. And the European Union let that go to waste because they went back to squabbling like little girls like they did to start World War I. But Roosevelt couldn't ignore it anymore because he saw a bunch of sailors die in Pearl Harbor. The Alabama is now sitting at the bottom of the ocean right now. Like, what was it? 100,000 sailors died that day in the span of a 3-hour morning. A whole entire fleet sunk to the bottom of the ocean. And the American people were pissed off enough about that to tell Roosevelt, hey, get over there, kick this guy's ass. He started this, let's finish it.
Building generous welfare states, universal health care, free universities, early retirement, 6 weeks of paid vacation. They could afford such luxuries because they did not have to pay the true cost of their own defense.
Yep.
American soldiers stood guard. American missiles pointed at Moscow. American carriers patrolled the seas. When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989 and the Soviet threat seemed to vanish, European defense budgets began a long slide into irrelevance. Why pay for security when America would always provide it? Germany slashed its armed forces from over 500,000 troops to under 200,000, mothballing tanks and letting military expertise drain away through retirement. The mighty German tank fleet shrank from over 2,000 main battle tanks to barely 300 operational vehicles.
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence Roosevelt knew that was coming and let it happen so that the public would support us going in. I don't think that Roosevelt let it happen. I think that he wanted to stick with what the American populace wanted. I truly believe that. The American populace back then did not want to be involved in another world war, especially after seeing its soldiers die in Europe the first time. Okay? We got no reward for World War I. None. Countries didn't pay us back, nothing. We gave everything out, literally in tax money. Back then, we're going through a Great Depression. Nobody was making any money in the United States back then. Our treasury was poor. Roosevelt was trying to push us out of that. The American people voted him into office to try and fix all that. Roosevelt wanted us involved because it would single-handedly fix everything in the American economy. What he didn't want, though, is he did not want his party base to turn on him. I think, honestly, he wanted to fix the Great Depression, and Pearl Harbor was the tipping point he needed. And that's just my honest opinion of it.
A 90% reduction in 2 decades of...
That's a tale for another stream. They knew it was coming, though. They did. I think that our Senate did know it, and I think our Senate took measures to ignore the problem. Absolutely.
Peace dividend. Britain conducted defense review.
They knew, but they did not know from where. That's true, DJ.
after defense review, each cutting deeper than the last, shrinking the Royal Navy and Army to levels not...
Yes. We knew that Japan was going from island to island, taking over islands in the Pacific Ocean. We knew that. And as DJ pointed out, we didn't know when we were going to get hit or where. It was a surprise to everybody when Pearl Harbor happened.
Seen since Napoleon. Year after year, decade after decade, NATO allies promised to spend 2% of GDP on defense, then quietly failed to meet even these minimal commitments. American presidents from Eisenhower to Reagan to Clinton to Obama complained about burden sharing, and European capitals ignored every complaint, knowing America would never actually leave. The arrangement suited European interests perfectly. Security without sacrifice, protection without payment, freedom to criticize American policy while depending on American power. In February 2014, Vladimir Putin sent Russian troops into Crimea, annexing Ukrainian territory in the first...
That is until Trump came in with a sledgehammer. Exactly, Tylen. One of the reasons why I voted for that man is not only illegal immigration in my country, but that man is stellar, and I say stellar, at international policy. I don't know where that gift comes from him being, a hotel or a multi-billionaire. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's just because he's good at talking about deals, but that man handles the UN in the way that I voted for him to. I don't want freebies to Europe anymore. I'm sorry. To all of you Europeans out there, I just don't want it. It's the same reason why actually Neves and I have this disagreement behind the curtains about sending troops over to Israel right now. My stance is we have sacrificed enough blood in deserts against terrorism without any payment from any other nation for defending them. That includes Europe. The sad reality is that Israel's got to take care of its own problem. They do. They got to go in there like we did in Afghanistan, fuck some shit up on the ground. Don't listen to the fucking UN. Delete them. Plain and simple. Gaza being fucking broken Legos is a good thing. And nobody understands that because everybody's seeing the death and destruction of a bunch of people praising terrorists. Oh my God, they only do it because that's their only defense. That's horseshit. Kirk was right. Israel has given Palestine 4 different peace opportunities to come to the table, and Palestine's ignored every single one of them. Why would I want my money going toward helping that out when it's failed 4 times? As an American, I don't want it anymore. I don't want to help the world anymore. I'm tired of helping the world. I watched my brothers die helping the world. The UN is a farce. I don't want us supporting it anymore.
Just forcible border change.
American first, the rest of the world can do it for themselves. Exactly, Silver. Amen.
In Europe since World War...
And God fucking bless the United States of America.
War II. The Obama administration worked with...
Nah, we need a cannon to break this shit up.
With European allies to impose sanctions, measures that European leaders had to be dragged into kicking and screaming, as Obama himself later admitted. The 2014 Wales summit finally established the 2% GDP defense spending target, a goal that should have been met decades earlier, that Europe had promised and broken countless times before. But as Russian aggression faded from headlines, European defense spending remained anemic. Only 3 NATO allies met the 2% target that year. European politicians nodded solemnly at alliance summits, promised to increase military spending, flew home, and continued building social programs with money that should have bought tanks and planes. Yep. Skilled workers who knew how to build tanks and artillery shells retired without passing on their knowledge. No one was ordering military equipment in a world where America handled all serious threats.
Yep.
Ammunition stockpiles dwindled to dangerously low levels. Why store expensive shells that would never be used when American warehouses could always be raided in an emergency? Vladimir Putin shattered comfortable European illusions at dawn on February 24, 2022, when Russian tanks rolled across the Ukrainian border and 30 years of wishful thinking crumbled into rubble. Suddenly, European leaders discovered that war had returned to their continent. Real war with artillery barrages, tank battles, and cities reduced to ruins just hundreds of miles from EU capitals. Ukraine fought with astonishing courage. Its president refused evacuation. Its soldiers stopped the Russian advance. But they could not have survived without massive Western support. And when Europe tried to provide that support, it discovered the terrible truth about what 3 decades of neglect had done to its military capabilities. The European Union pledged to deliver 1 million artillery shells to Ukraine by spring 2024, and then watched in humiliation as production fell catastrophically short of the target. By early 2024, the EU had delivered barely half of what it promised.
Yeah. Yeah, because you Europeans are so smart when it comes to warfare. That's proven by past history.
European factories had simply forgotten how to produce ammunition at scale. The workers retired, the knowledge lost. Ukraine was firing thousands of rounds per day while European production struggled to keep pace. Shells expended faster than the entire continent could manufacture them. In the first 3 months of 2024 alone, Russia produced what all of NATO produced in an entire year, a 4-to-1 advantage in the most basic tool of ground warfare. Once again,
that is where Ukraine started to lose. They started to lose because of logistics. They didn't lose because of man-made courage. They lost because of logistics. Logistics is one of the 5 points of warfare. If you don't have logistics, you have absolutely nothing. Nada. If you can't get ammo to soldiers when they need it, you're fucked.
Again, American factories stepped up, ramping production from 14,000 shells per month to over 100,000, filling gaps that Europe could not fill for itself. By early 2025, the United States had provided approximately $175 billion in total aid to Ukraine. American taxpayers once again funding European security. American HIMARS devastated Russian logistics. American Abrams tanks provided armored punch. American Patriot missiles defended Ukrainian cities. The weapons that made the difference were made in USA. In 2024, the United States spent over $800 billion on defense, while European NATO members collectively spent around $350 billion, America outspending Europe more than 2-to-1.
That's the whole entire fucking continent.
European NATO members finally reached the 2% GDP target collectively in 2024, a full decade late, and only after Russian tanks made the threat impossible to ignore any longer. Poland emerged as the exception, spending over 4% of GDP on defense because Poles remember Soviet occupation and understand threats that Western Europeans prefer to forget. Meanwhile, Spain's defense budget remained flat for a decade. Italy stagnated for years, and Germany's much-celebrated military reforms proceeded at a glacial pace despite Russian aggression. The fundamental problem was never money. Europe's combined GDP exceeds Russia's by a factor of 15. The problem was will, priorities, and decades of dependency on American protection. And now we arrive at the bitter present, where European nations that could not defend themselves, could not supply Ukraine, could not meet their own commitments, have found their voices to condemn America. President Trump's stated interest in Greenland for American national security has united European leaders in outrage, the same leaders who spent decades failing to provide for their own security. 7 European heads of government issued a joint statement defending Danish sovereignty. Nations that expected America to defend their sovereignty now lecture America about respecting others. Danish Prime Minister Frederiksen warned that American action on Greenland could end the transatlantic partnership, a partnership sustained for 80 years entirely by American sacrifice and American blood. Denmark's active-duty military is smaller than the New York Police Department, yet Copenhagen expects America to defend Greenland while condemning American strategic interest in the island.
And that is where I am pissed. You guys want my brothers to go over there? That is why I'm angered at the politicians in Greenland. That is why I separate the politicians in Greenland from what the actual civilians want. The actual civilians in Greenland would love to be a part of America. Love it. And if they could vote on it, they would probably oust that prime minister and then go on forward with seceding as a single country into our country. But yet again, you've got everybody in Europe doesn't understand the consequences of their fucking actions, spoiled rotten by the American taxpayer, that now every European country hates us. And you know what I say? I say good. Great. I don't want you liking me. I don't want you liking me at all. I hate you more than you hate me. Mm-hmm.
The same European leaders who spent years underfunding NATO, failing to meet their commitments and...
It's time for the South to rise up and liberate our Greenland brothers. I mean, Kodiak, it's important to separate the citizens and the politicians from the word go, but these communists don't understand that, as they believe the government is the religion. Greenland really doesn't have a lot of leftists in it, Thailand. It really doesn't. Greenland's been actually trying to make Trump's vision a reality since Trump got elected the first time. The problem is that Biden got elected and fucked all that up. And then the European Union went back into where they were before with Obama. We can just squabble our way to get whatever we want. Use American tax money to get whatever we want. To use American soldiers as pawns. See, the United States is under this manipulation that it's our government that is using us as pawns. No, it's not. Right now, guys like Ilhan Omar are too stupid to know what to do with American defense. AOC, too fucking stupid. The dude from New York, New Scum in California, they're too stupid to realize the value of the American soldier because they are so fucking greedy. Which is why I voted for an asshole that will fucking push them around, make fun of them, call them dorks to their face, make them fucking cry in their little fucking tampons, make them bleed all over the place through their fucking stupid little vaginas, so that I can get what I want as an American citizen. I want us to go back to the glory days of where nobody could fuck with us. That's what I want. No policing the world. Care about America. Get America on the right track first. Those are the three things that I fucking voted for. Taxes, illegal immigration, and defense. Those are the three things that I voted for. And almost 7 out of 10 Americans agree with me with how the voting numbers were back in 2025 when Trump got elected. Which is why all these liberals are running around fucking pissing everybody off. I want to care about my place first. Not these fucking dickheads in their suits over in Europe.
Free riding on American protection now speak of American interests as threats.
And I'm saying that Europeans are at the edge as well. We don't want to take care of the third world. We want trade and travel with the U.S. You got to find a way to get them out, Shepard. You got to find a way to get them out. You're at the point, dude, where you can't sit on your hands anymore if you're a European. You can't. The European Union sucks. NATO sucks more. Your politicians have been using my country as a piggy bank for decades now. America caught on to it. You guys are just 5 years behind on it. The way that you fix it is getting these people out of power, getting them out of office. You make the assumptions on what you need to do because I don't live in Europe. You make those assumptions on what you need to do to fix that. Do it the same way that the Israelis are doing it against Palestine. Shell the shit out of them. Make them pay for every life they took. I don't feel bad for a single Palestinian because they used a terrorist group that is a combined of ISIS, Taliban, Al-Qaeda. They used all three of those groups to summon an army called Hamas. And now it's sitting in Palestine. The reason why they're not fucking around anymore with Americans is because Biden did the stupid pullout of Afghanistan. Gave them all the hardware. So now they're going to use that. They've been using that hardware on Israel. Building tunnels. Chopping off heads. Kidnapping people. Burning babies in bathtubs. It is one of the reasons why everybody thinks Hassan is an idiot. Yeah, he is an idiot. He's been an idiot since moment one. And he should have never been famous on the internet, but Americans grow stupid. Thank you for the raid, Psychro. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you, thank you. That's another person that lives in Europe that would love to be an American. Thank you for the raid, bud. I appreciate you.
To the alliance. French President Macron, German Chancellor Merz, British Prime Minister Starmer, and leaders from Italy, Spain, and Poland all rushed to push back against the nation that had saved them all. European troops have been deployed to Greenland in symbolic defiance of the United States, forces that would have been more useful on Europe's eastern border facing actual Russian threats. The European Commission's defense chief even warned that American action could force Europe to confront the United States, as if Europe could confront anyone without American help. Let us be absolutely clear about the arithmetic of this relationship, the ledger that European leaders prefer never to discuss. Since 1917, America has sent millions of soldiers to fight and die on European soil, over 500,000 Americans killed defending a continent that now issues statements condemning American interests. American taxpayers have spent trillions of dollars on European defense, the Marshall Plan, NATO infrastructure, Cold War deployments, and now Ukrainian aid, while Europeans built welfare states. America created and funded the alliance that kept Western Europe free for 45 years, deployed nuclear weapons to deter Soviet aggression, and maintained bases across the continent for 8 decades. When Russia invaded Ukraine...
Psychro, you are always welcome to become an American. You want to know why? Because you're smart. Just come up with the 2.5K, dude. Come over here and be an American citizen. We'd love you over here.
It was American weapons, American ammunition, and American money that kept Ukraine fighting.
Just wish our politicians here in America weren't massive fucking spineless fools. You forgot the word greedy in there. How is AOC worth $12 million on her annual tax report? And that's from 2025. Back in March. Because she is a politician, she has to state her overall net income. How did she go from making $254,000, which is anointed to her by the American taxpayer, but then turns around 6 years later and she's worth $2.5 million? How the fuck does that happen? The thing that Americans have done is let their politicians get greedy. Leftists are creating noise and deterring us from knowing about what's actually going on in Washington. That's all that American politics now is. It's noise. And it's easy when you have a whole entire political party that's both self-ending because they love abortion, financially dependent on other people, like me, who goes in and works about 70 hours every 2 weeks, doing a dangerous job, where my tax dollars get taken to take care of them. All these freebies going to immigrants, yet they didn't earn getting into this country like the current, wave of immigrants is, that are coming out of federal buildings right now in New York, paying the 2.5K, actually earning it, learning what America is, speaking English, respecting our laws. That's not happening with us. It's because the left is making a bunch of noise, Tylen. That's all that pride, this transgenderism, the lack of education. It's fucking noise. It's greedy fucking noise.
Not European industrial capacity which had been allowed to wither. Yet when...
I wish I could, but I can't leave my parents. They're elderly and need care. Well, I apologize for that, Shepard. Her OnlyFans paid off? No. Apparently AOC's tax documentation states that she made a couple of lucrative book deals in 2020 that have all of a sudden panned out in 2024. The average person in America is not stupid enough to see that as truth. I'm sorry.
When America expresses strategic interest in Greenland, where it already operates a military base under a 1951 treaty, Europe suddenly
I may be clever, but I'm useless in many aspects, else I would have to have a job already.
discovers principles about sovereignty.
We have plenty of jobs here, dude. Psychro. Jobs like mine where they actually physically labor you, where you're actually using your body to work. It's as Charlie Kirk said. There's plenty of those jobs around here. There's plenty of plumbing jobs, air conditioning mechanics, basic auto mechanic jobs, diesel mechanic jobs, building automobiles, steel plants. Steel plants are on the rise. They just can't get anybody to work in them now because Gen Z is a bunch of pussies. They would rather ask for a freebie than learning to do something hard.
And
Fixed
international
cars.
law.
Yep.
The nations that
We
expected
have that here
America
too.
to
I'm
guarantee
mentally
their
unavailable.
security, fund their defense, and protect them from Russian aggression.
It's the point that I'm trying to make, Psychro. If you come over to America, there's jobs in plenty if you're willing to work hard for them. That's always been the American dream. That's the point I'm trying to make. And America has lost that dream. ADHD and autism ain't fun. I understand, Psychro. I do. I get that. I do.
Aggression bristle at American assertiveness regarding American security interests. This is the mindset of the dependent, expecting protection while resenting the protector, demanding sacrifice while refusing to sacrifice, invoking alliance when convenient, and condemning it when not. The Greenland controversy reveals something deeper than a diplomatic disagreement. It reveals the...
Yeah, dude. Psychro. Just keep on grinding out what you're doing with the streaming stuff, bro. If you have to take a break because you have to get, mentally prepared for your job, my community was right back there with me, bro. Look at Rat. Rat's been following me since the day one release of Division 1. And Rat has been my greatest financial supporter throughout this whole entire thing. He helped me get through a divorce. He helped motivate me every single night that I streamed after I got done working in a jail. You build relationships with this thing, dude. That is why I am the type of streamer where I care about my community and I don't care what anybody says. I'm not changing for popularity. I give a shit about you guys. I really do. Yeah, I plan to. This year right now is me self-improving. If that's what you need to do, bro, I say do it. Put your full heart into it, bro.
The fundamental dysfunction at the heart of
I
the
hate Cody, so I
transatlantic
support him.
relationship.
Shut up, DJ.
Europe has become a continent that cannot defend its own borders.
I forget you have brain damage because of how clever you are, or well, better put together than the people who are brain dead. Cody, even if he can't do a physical job, if he can prove that he can support himself streaming, he'll be let in. Yeah, that's true. That's why I'm telling him he needs to continue doing it, and I'm encouraging him to stream. That podcast idea that you guys all passed around to us last night, I could help him make that a reality. I don't mind doing that. The problem with me right now is that I have a very demanding job where they can call me. If I'm going to do something like a podcast, man, I need to be able to support myself on streaming first. But I can't do that right now. I need a job.
Without American soldiers.
Next week, I'm starting a training course. Nice, Psychro. Shut up, DJ. Should be a channel point redeem. Or a soundboard track, considering how often you say it. Seth, you know what, dude? I'll figure out how to make that happen after stream's over tonight. Since you asked politely.
cannot produce
I
its own
agree.
ammunition without
Shut up,
American
DJ
factories,
soundboard.
cannot deter its own threats without
I'll make it a channel point redeem, bro.
American nuclear weapons. Russia's economy is smaller than
I have
Italy's
5 days.
alone.
I work 5
Yet
days a
European
week for at
nations
least 18
collectively
years.
cannot
That's my
muster the military
excuse.
power to deter Moscow without the
You're good,
American
Silver.
umbrella overhead. The empires that once ruled the world, conquered continents, and commanded the oceans now tremble at threats they could easily handle if they simply chose to spend the money and make the effort. European leaders lecture America about healthcare, climate policy, and international norms while quietly relying on American taxpayers to fund the security that makes their comfortable lives possible.
We also need a Bonk Cody animation sound redeem, please. Hold on. Since you guys are forcing me to write on my whiteboard. Hold on. I gotta remember this shit later now. What is that? Okay, so I need a Shut Up DJ and I need a Bonk Kodiak. Okay. Okay, I'll remember that. I'll try to make that a work in progress, guys.
They criticize American foreign policy, question American leadership, and congratulate themselves on their sophistication, all while American soldiers stand guard so Europeans can sleep safely.
Thanks, Silver.
And when America dares to assert its own interests, these same leaders unite in condemnation, forgetting instantly who saved them, who rebuilt them, who protected them for a century. From the trenches of 1918 to Normandy in 1944, to the Berlin airlift, to the Cold War, to Ukrainian ammunition factories today, the pattern never changes. Europe stumbles into crisis. Europe cannot extract itself. And America crosses the ocean with blood and treasure to rescue a continent that cannot manage its own affairs. Then Europe rebuilds, Europe prospers, Europe forgets. Until the next crisis comes and the cycle begins again. The graves stretch across France and Belgium and Luxembourg and the Netherlands, rows of white crosses marking the price Americans paid so Europeans could rebuild, prosper, and then forget.
Also, we need a Goth
116,000
Girls Rule
Americans
Cody
dead in
sound
World
redeem.
War I, 400,000 in World War II, thousands more through the Cold War, all for European security, all increasingly taken for granted. American families have borne this burden for over a century, sending their sons and daughters to defend nations that seem constitutionally incapable of defending themselves. Europe can defend itself without America. The resources exist, the technology is available, the threat is obvious enough that any rational assessment would demand serious investment immediately. What Europe lacks is the will to sacrifice, the courage to tell voters that security costs money, the basic seriousness to treat survival as something worth paying for. European voters have grown accustomed to generous pensions, free healthcare, long vacations, and the comfortable assumption that security is America's job to provide. Any politician who proposed serious defense increases would face voters demanding to know which benefits would be cut. And in European democracies, promising cuts is political suicide. So Europe continues to underspend, underperform, and underdeliver, while expecting America to fill every gap, meet every threat, and never complain too loudly about the arrangement. Until that changes, if it ever changes, Europe will remain what it has been since 1917, a collection of wealthy nations that cannot secure themselves without American help. 100 years from now, historians may marvel that the richest continent on Earth outsourced its survival to a nation across the ocean for an entire century. They may wonder why Europeans never learned the lesson taught in blood at the Somme, at Omaha Beach, at Checkpoint Charlie, and in the frozen rubble of Ukrainian cities. Or perhaps the lesson is simpler.
Oh my god,
Some
dude.
nations are willing to sacrifice for
Stop
freedom,
sharing those
and
clips,
some nations
DJ.
would rather let others do the fighting and pay the bills. America has proven again and again that it will answer the call when freedom is threatened, even when those it saves seem ungrateful, even when allies take sacrifice for granted. That willingness to sacrifice is what made America exceptional. But American patience, American generosity, and American tolerance for ingratitude all have limits. The question now hanging over the Atlantic is how much longer America will continue to pay for European security while Europe refuses to pay for itself and condemns America for asserting its own interests. History offers no guarantee that American patience will last forever, and comfortable assumptions built over 8 decades may prove as fragile as the arrogance that shattered in 1914. Europe once dismissed America as a nation unworthy of serious consideration, and today Europe survives only because America did what Europeans would not do for themselves. Now Europe lectures the nation that saved it, condemns the nation that rebuilt it, and resents the nation that still protects it. That is the price of depending on others for your survival. And someday, those others may decide they have better things to do than save you one more time. The European leaders who signed that joint statement condemning American interest in Greenland should be asked one simple question. Where were your armies when Russia invaded Ukraine? Where were your ammunition factories? Where were your 2% commitments made and broken for decades? Where was European resolve when it mattered? And where does Europe find the audacity to lecture America now? The American people have given enough blood, enough treasure, and enough sacrifice to earn the right to ask, when will Europe finally stand on its own feet? And until that day comes, the answer to why Europe cannot defend itself without America remains painfully, embarrassingly simple. Europe has chosen not to try, and now Europe has chosen to bite the hand that has fed it, protected it, and saved it for over 100 years. That is the story of American sacrifice and European ingratitude, and that is why Europe cannot defend itself without America. If you found this perspective valuable, consider subscribing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them. Thank you for watching.
He explains it so well.
In the frozen darkness of the Arctic Circle, where the sun disappears for months and...
I am hoping one day all of you European countries will wake up. And I think that the day that you all wake up is when you're going to realize that we aren't going to help you anymore. Because right now, we pull everything out. What do you have? We stop funding these bases in Europe that are keeping Russia at check. What do you have? We take all of our nukes out of Europe. What do you have against Russia? Nothing. We remove our troops from these NATO bases right now that are all over Europe. You don't have enough manpower to even man the bases, let alone get into a gunfight with a standing army. You guys are cooked. And what's even worse is that your people realize it across many different nations in Europe, but you politicians are so greedy you can't see it.
Hello. It's me.
The Doomslayer.
F Uncharted 4, let's react to Rev.